When we think of royal dining, our minds immediately wander to scenes of absolute extravagance. We picture long tables set with gold-rimmed plates, endless supplies of the finest Russian caviar, vintage champagne flowing like water, and feasts fit for, well, a queen. We imagine that every meal inside Buckingham Palace is a scene straight out of a period drama, filled with complex French dishes and ingredients most of us can't even pronounce. But the reality of Queen Elizabeth II's daily life was surprisingly different. Behind the closed doors of her private apartments, the woman who wore the crown was, at heart, a creature of habit, with a palate that was incredibly grounded. You have to remember, the Queen belonged to a generation defined by the Second World War. She grew up with rationing coupons and a sense of duty that extended to the dinner table, while she presided over hundreds of glittering state banquets during her 70-year reign. Her heart didn't belong to the lobsters or the truffles. It belonged to the simpler comforts, a quiet cocktail, fresh berries picked from her own garden, or something as humble as a jam sandwich. Today, we are going to look past the pomp and circumstance. We are diving into the royal menu to explore the 10 foods the Queen truly adored. These aren't just meals, they are stories of tradition, discipline, and a little bit of nostalgia. Meal number 1. The jam penny. Let's start with something that might seem incredibly simple, perhaps even too simple, for a monarch. It is known as the jam penny. For over 90 years, this tiny sandwich was a non-negotiable staple at the Queen's tea table. So, what exactly is it? It's a small, crustless circle of soft white bread, buttered generously and spread with strawberry jam. The name penny comes from its size and shape. It was cut specifically to resemble the Old English penny coin. This wasn't just a snack for the Queen, it was a time machine. It was a nostalgic trip back to the royal nursery. She began eating these as a toddler. At that time, Britain was still recovering from the shadows of World War I, and food was often plain, even for royalty. The jam itself was usually made from Scottish strawberries grown in the gardens of Balmoral Castle. For Elizabeth, amidst the chaos of ruling a nation and the Commonwealth, this simple, sweet treat represented stability. It was a connection to her childhood innocence before the weight of the crown landed on her shoulders. It proves that no matter how much power you have, comfort always outweighs extravagance. If you could bring back one specific snack from your childhood that you still love today, what would it be? Tell us your nostalgic craving in the comments. Meal number 2. Chocolate biscuit cake now. Let's talk about a sweet tooth. The Queen was a known chocoholic, but she didn't just eat any chocolate. Her ultimate weakness, the one dish chefs were never allowed to run out of, was the chocolate biscuit cake. This isn't your typical fluffy sponge cake. It is a dense, rich, no-bake cake. It's made by taking crunchy McVitie's rich tea biscuits, breaking them by hand, and folding them into a decadent mixture of dark chocolate and butter. It's then chilled until it's rock hard and covered in another layer of glossy chocolate. It symbolizes the post-war era perfectly. Ingredients were scarce, ovens were used sparingly, and nothing was wasted. Palace chefs have famously noted that while the Queen might leave other cakes half-eaten, she would return to this one every singe day, taking a small slice until every last crumb was gone. It is so beloved by the royal family that Prince William even broke tradition at his own wedding. While Kate Middleton had the traditional fruitcake, William requested this specific chocolate biscuit cake as his groom's cake, turning his grandmother's favourite snack into a royal legacy. Are you a fan of rich, dark chocolate desserts, or do you prefer something light and fruity like a sponge cake? Cast your vote, Team Chocolate or Team Fruit. Meal number 3. Earl Grey tea. You cannot talk about the Queen without talking about tea. Tea is the lifeblood of British culture, and Queen Elizabeth was its ultimate ambassador. Her cup of choice was invariably Twining's Earl Grey. But, as with everything royal, there was a strict protocol. It was always taken hot with a splash of milk and absolutely no sugar. Whether she was sitting in the morning room at Buckingham Palace or sailing across the globe aboard the royal yacht Britannia, this ritual was non-negotiable. Earl Grey is distinctive because of its bergamot flavour, a citrus fruit that gives the tea a floral, slightly perfume-like aroma. Historically, this tea represents the reach of the British Empire. But for the Queen, it was a democratic pleasure. It was a drink she shared with millions of her subjects. In a life that was so different from everyone else's, sitting down with a cup of tea was perhaps the one moment where her experience was exactly the same as yours or mine. This is a debate that divides nations. When making tea, do you put the milk in first or do you put the milk in last? Let us know your method below. Meal number 4. Cereal, Special K or cornflakes. If you imagined the Queen eating breakfast off silver platters served by a butler in a tuxedo, think again. Breakfast at the palace was far less ceremonial than one might expect. The Queen preferred a simple bowl of Special K or cornflakes. But here is the detail that shocks everyone. She insisted that the cereal be stored and served from plastic Tupperware containers. She believed it kept the cereal fresher than fancy glass or silver jars. In the 1950s and 60s, when she was a young monarch, cereals like cornflakes represented modernity, convenience, and the new fast-paced world. Occasionally, she would add some dried apricots or macadamia nuts, but mostly, she kept it purely functional. She would eat this while listening to her Robert's radio and reading the morning newspapers. This choice highlights her intensely practical nature. For her, breakfast wasn't about indulgence, it was about fueling up for the day ahead. The Queen loved her Tupperware for freshness. Do you store your food in fancy glass jars for the aesthetic, or are you strictly a plastic container family? Let's be honest in the comments. Meal number 5. Grilled fish and chicken. We've talked about the treats, but what about the discipline? The Queen lived to be 96 years old, and a huge part of that longevity was her disciplined approach to private meals. When she wasn't hosting guests or attending state banquets, she had a strict rule: no starch. That meant no potatoes, no rice, and no pasta for dinner. Instead, she opted for very light, healthy options. Her favorites were grilled Dover sole, served on a bed of wilted spinach or courgettes, or perhaps a simple grilled chicken breast with a fresh salad. This low-carb approach helped her maintain her energy levels during grueling days filled with handshakes and speeches. While she had access to the richest, heaviest French sauces in the world, she deliberately chose to treat food as fuel for duty rather than entertainment. It was a silent discipline that she kept for decades. The Queen gave up pasta and potatoes for dinner to stay healthy. Could you give up carbs for your evening meal, or is that a deal-breaker for you? Meal number 6, the Sunday roast. Despite her disciplined diet, nothing screams British quite like a Sunday roast, and the Queen was a stickler for this tradition. Be it roast beef, lamb, or poultry, she loved the communal feel of a Sunday lunch after church. It was one of the few times the family could sit together without the press watching. However, the Queen had a very specific, somewhat controversial requirement for her meat. She liked her meat well done. She was absolutely not a fan of rare or bloody meat. If a roast beef was served pink, she wouldn't eat the center slices. She would ask for the end pieces, which were more cooked. For her, a well-done roast offered a homely, cozy consistency that fancy, undercooked restaurant meats lacked. It reinforced her love for reliable, traditional British home cooking. This is a huge culinary debate. How do you like your steak or roast beef cooked? Rare, medium, or well done like the Queen? Meal number 7. Potted shrimps. Number 7 is a slightly more old-fashioned choice. Something you might not see on modern menus. Potted shrimps. These became a massive favourite of the Queen, particularly when she was staying at Balmoral in Scotland. Potted shrimps are small, brown shrimps caught in Morecambe Bay. They are boiled and then sealed, or potted, in a spiced butter seasoned heavily with nutmeg and cayenne pepper. The magic happens when you spread this mixture over hot, crunchy toast. The spiced butter melts instantly, soaking into the bread while the shrimps stay warm and savoury. It's a dish born out of preservation needs before fridges existed, but the Queen loved the history of it. It celebrated British coastal produce without being overly flashy or pretentious. Potted shrimps are a very specific taste involving spiced butter and seafood. Are you an adventurous seafood eater, or do you prefer to stick to the basics like fish and chips? Meal number 8. Croque monsieur. Even the Queen had what we might call a guilty pleasure, while she usually avoided heavy carbs. She occasionally enjoyed a croque monsieur. For those who haven't tried it, this is essentially the ultimate toasted sandwich. It's made with ham and cheese, usually Gruyere or Emmental, but it's taken to the next level by being topped with a bechamel sauce and more cheese, then grilled until it is bubbling and golden brown. Former royal chefs have shared stories of how this warm, cheesy comfort food brought a genuine smile to her face. It was usually served as a lunch treat. It shows that, even with her strict discipline, she understood that sometimes you just need melted cheese to make the day better. The croque monsieur is the ultimate comfort sandwich. What is your guilty pleasure food that you eat when you just want to feel happy? Meal number 9. Gin and Dubonnet. Now, let's talk about her drink of choice. Before lunch, the Queen often enjoyed a very specific aperitif, gin and Dubonnet. This wasn't just a random cocktail, it was a legacy. She inherited this taste from her mother, the Queen Mother, who lived to be 101. The mix was precise, 2 parts Dubonnet, which is a sweet, wine-based aperitif, to 1 part gin. It had to be served with ice and a slice of lemon, but, and this is crucial, the lemon had to have the pips removed. For the Queen, this wasn't about drinking to excess. It was a civilized ritual, a way to pause, reset, and take a breath before the afternoon's engagements began. It was a moment of quiet luxury in a busy day. The Queen had a very specific pre-lunch drink ritual. Do you have a specific drink, coffee, tea, or soda, that you need to get through your day? Meal number 10. Game and local produce. Finally, number 10 shows us that the Queen was a true believer in farm-to-table eating, long before it became a trendy buzzword. She loved produce from her own estates. We are talking about venison hunted at Balmoral, pheasant from Sandringham, and salmon caught in the River Dee. She took great pride in eating what the land provided. She even enjoyed a good venison burger. But, in true royal fashion, she would eat the burger without the bun, using a knife and fork. In the summer, she would go into the gardens and pick berries herself to be served with cream. This deep connection to the land and the seasons showed her respect for nature. She didn't need food flown in from halfway across the world. She was happiest with the simple, honest ingredients from her own backyard. The Queen ate her burgers with a knife and fork and no bun. Is that sophisticated? Or does a burger absolutely need a bun to be enjoyed? What do you think? From the humble jam penny of her childhood to the disciplined grilled fish of her later years, Queen Elizabeth II's diet tells the story of her life. It was a balance of duty and delight, discipline and nostalgia. She showed us that you don't need gold flakes on your dessert or caviar for breakfast to live a rich life. Sometimes the best meals are the ones that remind us of home. Thank you for joining us at the royal table today. If you enjoyed this look into the Queen's private life, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more history and food stories. We'll see you in the next video.